Welcome back, viewers. You're still here in Scope with me, Waqar Rizvi. Now, in this segment, we're going to discuss Iranian warships, which have headed out from the port of Bandar Abbas, and where exactly they're headed is not known at this time. There's much speculation on the part of the U.S. media that these ships may be bound for Venezuela. One of these warships is an intelligence gathering vessel, and another is a domestically built destroyer. Even the Iranian Navy's own officials have said this is the Navy's longest and most challenging voyage yet. Now, there is, as I said, already freak out on the part of the U.S. establishment about what exactly these warships may be carrying. Are they carrying arms for the likes of Venezuela or otherwise? The U.S. has already warned Venezuela and Cuba to reject these Iranian ships, and many are pointing out then to the U.S. that, listen, these are sovereign countries, so if they do wish to have these warships come into their territory, that is their sovereign decision to make, and then, of course, there are other related issues to U.S.-Iran relations, as we well know. There are those continuing Vienna negotiations. The U.S. has lifted sanctions on a number of officials, even though it says that these are not connected to the Vienna negotiations. Former officials, that is, I should clarify. And then on top of that, we have the Russians as well, selling or giving, in fact, spy satellite technology to the Iranians to then be able to spy on, Israeli targets, one would imagine, or Israeli and U.S. bases, in fact, across the Middle East region, areas which, of course, would be of sensitivity for the Americans and the Israelis, one can only imagine. Let's discuss all of the above a bit further. We're now joined by Dr. Stephen Zunes, who is a professor of politics at the University of San Francisco. He's joining us from Santa Cruz, California this morning. Joining us from Arlington, Virginia is Yousof Azizi, who is a research analyst in U.S. foreign policy decision-making and is a PhD candidate in public administration at Virginia Tech. Yousof and Stephen, good morning to you both, and thank you both for joining us. Yousof, let me start with you. Is there legitimate reasons to be concerned about why these warships have left Iran and where exactly they're headed and what exactly they may be carrying?
Not particularly, because, in recent years, the Iranian and Venezuela has produce a strong relationship because of the United States unilateral sanction against these two countries, even Cuba and other countries like Russia and China. So Iranian tried to send, some tankers of gas and gasoline and oil to Venezuela to restore their economy, even, doing some business on, food market in Venezuela. So they now try to secure this relationship, this movement by their ship to the Venezuela from Persian Gulf to the Atlantic coast. So they try to secure this with some vessels, with their navies. And Macron is not just an intelligent thing. It is converted oil tanker to become supporter of the vessels with food, gasoline, and security to other small vessels. So this is just a routine exercising of the international law and the law of the sea. There is nothing very that the United States is concerned about. Sending two vessels to the Atlantic coast is not something that concerns the United States heavy army present in the region.
So then, Stephen, if we're completely honest, is this less about these warships, but just the fact that these two countries, as Yousof there said, who are both under sanctions by the U.S., the fact that they're supporting each other in some way out of the reach of the Americans, that in and of itself has bothered the establishment?
Exactly. I mean, the idea that two Iranian warships are sailing into the Atlantic Ocean and possibly, maybe not, going on to the Caribbean is somehow a threat to the United States is just so ludicrous. I mean, the United States has scores of warships sailing right off the Iranian coast along the Persian Gulf. We've done that for decades over the years, going back to the tanker war in the 1980s. The United States has bombed coastal facilities. Our Navy jets, Navy boats have attacked, killed a fair number of Iranians over the years, even shot down an Iranian airliner back in 1988. I mean, there's, given the history of the massive military presence right along Iran's coast, the fact that some people would suddenly start getting all upset about two Iranian warships in the Atlantic Ocean is really just ludicrous beyond words. This is a political thing. Has nothing to do with America's legitimate security interests.
So then, in that context, then, Yousof, considering the freak out about this specific incident, A, in mind, but then B, do you think it's important then that this news about the Russians giving this satellite technology, possibly spy satellite technology, to the Iranians is relevant? Because this just goes to show, I would imagine, on the part of the Iranians that they are, A, reaching out to all of their friends, be it the Russians, Chinese, or even others beyond them, for this sort of technology to keep themselves secure?
So, in October 2020, last year, the United Nations arms embargoes on Iran expired, okay, despite the United States objection under President Trump administration. So, Iranian, after seeing what happened under JCPOA, okay, they didn't get the benefit they assumed from JCPOA from the Western countries. They now reach to other major powers in the world, China, the strategic relationship with China in the next 25 years. So they now ask some, military equipment or intelligence activity by Russians. So this is part of Iranian making balance of power in the Middle East, in the ongoing disputes in the Middle East. The Turkeys, Qataris, Saudis, Israelis, everyone wanna get a hand in this region because of United States assume that leave the region, at least, decrease the presence in the region because they want to focus more on the East Asia. So this is not getting them, some kind of intelligence support from Russia is not something that directly dispute the United States interests in United States coastal or something like that. It's just focusing on the Middle East. But Iranian now sees that they have free hand to get more support from other major powers to, to make some pressure on the United States to restore JCPOA maybe and, restore the relationship that Iranian sees sought after the JCPOA signed in 2015 from Western countries.
Stephen, I'll give you the final word before I let you both go. On that point of the JCPOA and what's happening right now in Vienna vis-a-vis the negotiations, we do have this news, as you well know, that a number of former officials of Iran, the sanctions that had been placed on them in the past have now been lifted. The Americans saying this is an administrative decision, that there's no connection between these two moves. That may very well be true, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, A. But then B, also upon this move of the Iranians to reach out to the Russians and or vice versa, to get this sort of spy satellite technology. I mean, it sort of seems almost like mixed messages from both sides, isn't it?
Yes, Iran is looking at many options that they have before us. I mean, it's the United States, of course, that withdrew, from the agreement in the first place, and it's been they've sort of been divided by a common goal, you might say, in trying to reach some kind of agreement. And Iran is tired of its isolation and tired of its enforced isolation. They're tired of the double standards the United States and some Western powers have had regarding its nuclear program compared to those of neighboring countries that actually have nuclear weapons. And so I think this is they're basically hedging their bets, you might say, to try to end their isolation through this. I don't think we should overread it. However, I mean, I think that whatever happens in the nuclear accords, Iran is going to continue to assert itself as a mid-level power, certainly as a regional power, and as reasonable as criticisms of the Iranian regime are, and there are many legitimate criticisms of Iran, as there are of Russia and Venezuela and other countries. I think that the United States has to recognize that it is a more pluralistic world, and we can't control every country. We can't control their military maneuvers. We can't control their alliances. And I think we need the United States needs to be asserting its interests, like any country. It needs to stop being so arrogant, and not think we can somehow control the world.
That's a very good point to end on. We'll leave there at that, but we really appreciate Stephen and Yousof for taking their time out this morning, speaking to us from California and Virginia, respectively, sharing their expertise with us. We were discussing there the warships that Iran has sent out to the Atlantic. Complete freak out on the part of the U.S. media and establishment about what those ships may very well be carrying. As Stephen there contextualized for us, these are just 2 warships, if we're completely honest, versus the many, many that the Americans have very close to the Iranian coast and shoreline. Iran is very well within its international power and laws, of course, as Yousof, they're set to send out these warships. It's not doing anything against international law at this point, even if it is helping allied countries like Venezuela. Then there's a spy satellite technology. Is it a game changer? We don't know at this point, but it is important for the Iranians to reach out to its allies to find ways to, quote unquote, secure itself. And then there are these Vienna negotiations that continue. As Stephen there said right at the end, this all seems to be, if we're completely honest, about America trying to control at all times everybody around the world, which I would imagine is quite a tiring task anyhow, and probably it should give up on that and just accept the fact that it is living now in a multipolar world.